I'm Irish. You probably have picked that up already. I'm from the city of Derry in the northwest of Ireland. But you probably know a more famous person, also from Derry, County Derry actually. His name is Seamus Heaney, and he's a poet. And the last person here is going to also give you poetry. But he was a poet and a Nobel laureate in literature. Yeah. So go with me here. Strange how things in the offing, once they're sensed, convert to things foreknown, and how what's come upon is manifest only in light of what has been gone through. Seventh heaven is the whole truth of a sixth sense come to pass. At any rate, out on the road beyond Coleraine, where wind got saltier, the sky more hurried, and silver lame shivered on the ban, out in mid-channel between the painted poles, that day I'll be in touch with what escaped me. These two phrases I want you to keep in mind, because what I'm going to tell you about is actually the scientific basis of both. It's a very strange idea, right? And I'm going to tell you about the science of coordination. Edward introduced me already. So my students and I study coordination dynamics. And what does that mean? Coordination dynamics attempts to describe, explain, predict how patterns of coordination occur in all living things, from cells to societies. Coordination dynamics is very interesting, I think. And that's because when you look at it very closely, you see that the many parts of things communicate with each other and realize complicated patterns of behavior. Yeah? So coordination is something you all take for granted, right? It's almost like gravity. But it's there all the time. So that's the science of coordination, and you see it everywhere. Here's a man and a woman dancing or making love. Here's a fencing pair. One is attacking, one is defending. And you might think those are separate things, but if you stand back and look at it as sort of one spatiotemporal event, what you see is that they're intimately coordinated. Attack and defense are going on at the same time. And that's one of the central themes, maybe the central theme that I want you to go away with. That's to say, two opposing tendencies, like attack and defense, can actually coexist at exactly the same time. It's not an either or, but rather, if you like, a both and. And that's the mindset I want to leave you with. Now, this is Michaela Wallace. This is the kind of stuff we do in the laboratory. And Michaela is a famous ballerina. She happens to be my goddaughter as well. And we brought her into the laboratory and we put sensors on her body, 32 of them, and each one was measured in the X, Y, and Z directions. That's 3 times 32 variables. Can anybody do the arithmetic? 96, right? 96 variables, and I haven't even mentioned time. They're being sampled 100 times a second. So time is evolving. So can you imagine how to understand the coordination of this beautiful dancer? Beautiful spatio-temporal patterns evolving in time. Can anybody recognize this? And it's actually a horse and a rider, and these were the relationship between the horse and the rider is a very old one, covers millennia. And these studies were very early studies to show how horse and rider are coordinated in time. And what's the difference between an expert and a novice? And this turns out to be very important because the study we did was with people in Vienna who test the horses for whether they qualify for the Lipizzaner, right? Not tell you more about that. Now, bringing us into the point break idea. Here's the wave, right? Here's the wave evolving in time. Here's the surfer. So the surfer, the board, the wave are all coordinated. You know the word synergy. Does anybody know the word synergy? You might have heard it before already today. This kind of coordination is highly synergized. There's a functional synergy that's coherent in time. And my son tells me, he's a surfer, that the point break is exactly the point where you feel a presence. You actually can time your action just coincident with the flow of the wave, right? And that's beautiful. And of course, coordination is everywhere. The synergies are everywhere in ants. You've heard about already. You know, the football, you have to have teamwork. So it's ubiquitous, as we say. Coordination is everywhere. Try not to take it for granted, because when it breaks, that's the only time you really know it, right? We come to the brain. The brain is like a Balanchine ballet. Yeah? Neural groups coming together, joining, some leaving, some staying, new ones forming, departing. It's a continuous dance of the brain. Both the tendency to integrate for the parts of the brain, to pull together, and the tendency for the parts to remain independent, to retain their individuality. Both those things, it turns out, are going on in the brain. It's not one or the other. It's not, here's the modular brain with this piece of cortex doing that, nor is it the brain that's highly synchronized and marching like a group of ants or a marching band for that matter. Okay, so this is now a little bit of science. This is what we call metastability. Meta means beyond. It's a common word these days, but I like Latin. Meta means beyond. Stable, stabilis, standing. So it turns out that the brain with these coexisting tendencies is metastable. Keep that in mind. Your brain is metastable. Okay? And this shows it. What you see is the coordination evolving in time. And you see there's only two factors here in this particular simulation. The two factors are, how different are the parts? Because in biology, the parts are often very different. And how coupled are the parts together, right? Could be weakly coupled, it could be strongly coupled. That's it. It's one of the key things. The third thing is something you're all familiar with, which is called noise, right? And another word for that is fluctuations. And we're all aware of fluctuations, you know, if you go to your bank and your dollar isn't what it used to be, et cetera, et cetera. But look at just at this. Stay with me with this. What you see is this coordination involving in time. And when there's no coupling between the elements, guess what? It's boring as hell. Not just a straight line. That's that blue line you see. And then the other situation is you're strongly coupled. That's the orange one or the gold one. And if you're strongly coupled, too strongly coupled, you're too stable. You're not flexible. You're not adaptable, right? But look what's in the middle. What's in the middle here, huge space of what I'm calling metastability, beyond stability. And what you see here is a kind of flow of tendencies for the parts to work together at the same time as you want the parts to do their own thing. And that's what you see here. The balance of those two factors gives you an infinite range of possibilities. Your mind, though you may not realize it, is metastable. Okay? What does that mean? Well, metastable coordination dynamics transcends the binary either or. We're living in a world of binary decisions. That AI business is ones and zeros, fundamentally. Ones and zeros. Okay? And often at the very root of physics, where we ask, is light a wave or a particle? That's a binary decision. It's a choice. And that's the dominant mindset. I'm not saying we can't ignore it, but I'm saying that there's more to life and mind and behavior than that. By embracing metastability, we can go beyond the dualities. We can go beyond polarization. And if we embrace it, then we can realize a far more nuanced sense of ourselves, our relations to others, our relation to nature, our place in the universe. Strange how things in the offing once they're sensed. Yeah? So what I am saying here is that Seamus Heaney, seventh heaven is the whole truth of a sixth sense come to pass. If you can embrace the metastable brain mind, then it's almost like a sixth sense. And perhaps, maybe, that sixth sense can come to pass. Thank you very much.